Well, it seems crazy that only yesterday it was quite pleasant and sunny outside when we were filming other parts of our clip for the Audi Allroad. But in a way, the bad weather kind of speaks to our narrative. The Allroad is an all-weather, all-rounder. But how has Audi's all-terrain wagon worked for us for the last 3 months? Well, let's find out. Pricing starts from $70,600 before options and on-road costs, but our car adds 19-inch wheels, metallic paint and a driver assistance pack. The wheels and paint are nice, but the $2,900 assistance suite feels a bit cheeky at this price point, especially when you consider it adds technology that you regularly find as standard equipment on cars with less prestigious badges. However, one of the strongest points of the A4 Allroad is how it looks. Now, it may be just a grey station wagon, but we've had people on the street come up and say, what a smart looking car. And I've got to say, it really does look good. From the LED headlamps, the optional 19-inch wheels, and even the Manhattan grey paint, it kind of comes together really, really well. And here's another fun thing. When we take a press car from Audi, they give us a whole library of these little postcards in the glove box that have the spec of the car there, so you know what all the bits and pieces are, and more importantly, what they cost. But you can give these out to people if they do want a car like this. And I will say, Audi, it's a really, really clever idea and we like it. Now, it's freezing cold out here. Let's jump in and have a look inside before we go for a drive. Now, before I get in, I will say I'm really sorry. We actually washed this car yesterday and I've only just noticed it now. It is absolutely filthy. So it's pretty sad to see what one day can do, especially on grey paint. Now, there's a common misconception out there that by not buying an SUV, like say a Q5, you're somehow compromising. But I've got to say, the A4 Allroad as a station wagon, there's plenty of room back here. I'm 6'3", that seat is in my driving position, and as you can see, I've got a stack of knee room, I've got good toe room, but more importantly, got a heap of headroom, and I'm very comfortable. Plus, there's everything you need. There are central air vents and temperature controls, a 12-volt outlet, map pockets behind the front seats, deep bins in the doors, and integrated blinds in the windows. But one of the things that we will say a lot about this car is just how well it is made, and perhaps something that really kind of calls this out are the cup holders here in the center armrest. Now, you just listen to that. It's a well-engineered plastic movement here. It feels solid, it feels sure, and it feels reliable. And you do find that in some other European cars, you end up with a flimsy piece of plastic you wouldn't want to rest a coffee cup in. This feels well made, and that's why you choose an Audi. Now, as I said, there's no boot kicker on this car, which is a bit of a shortcoming at this price point. However, you do get a very usable 495-litre boot. It's a flat loading floor. You've got remote levers to fold the seats down to expand the load bay if you need to, and it has been a very, very usable car. I've had this as I've moved house, has kind of worked well. Perhaps the best thing about the boot though is the parcel blind, which may seem like a silly thing, but it motorizes out of the way when you open the boot and it comes back down again when you close the boot, which for me, who tends to be a little bit forgetful, is actually a really cool feature. Now, that feeling of quality certainly extends up here to the front seats as well. In our 3 months with this car, there has not been one rattle, one creak, one shake. It is a really, really well put together car. You've got some very nice material selections. The dashboard here, these lovely knurled switches, it feels premium, it feels well put together. And I think in terms of that intrinsic Audi quality, the Allroad is still well ahead of some others. Now, keen continuity watchers may note that I don't use my glasses for driving. Yeah, that's fine, they're for reading and I can see perfectly what's going on up ahead. I'm just wondering what those people are doing on the road. Kidding. Well, first things first, the 2-litre turbo diesel engine. Now, interestingly, Audi updated this car for 2020, and then for 2021, they updated it again and it got a new engine, which this one doesn't have, despite us thinking that it did, and it turns out that it didn't. It's all part of the delivery cycle of COVID and things, but we will get a chance to drive that later. So this car still has the 140 kilowatt 2-litre turbo diesel. The new A4 Allroad, that looks exactly the same, has a 2-litre turbo diesel with 150 kilowatts because it has a 12-volt mild hybrid system. Mainly that gives it a little bit of extra urge, but it mainly gives it better economy. And we're keen to see if it does make any difference, because being a relatively small capacity diesel, we would have expected a bit better fuel economy than mid 7 litres per 100. And even on the open road, we did a long tour in this car where it was sitting around high 6s. So not crazy. And I guess it comes down to it. I remember it wasn't that long ago, we had cars that were doing 15, 16, 20 litres per 100, and we thought that that was okay. So, okay, cool, we're in the 7s, but I really would have expected this car to have sat in the 6s and maybe in the 5s on a longer tour. But fuel use aside, the 2-litre diesel in this car, it's a really, really nice engine. You've got plenty of punch when it builds that response above 2,000 RPM, even higher if you do need the car to feel a bit more urgent. It's a really nice and responsive engine, and it's actually been one of the highlights of this car. If you need it, there is a fair amount of performance, and it makes the all-road a really enjoyable car to drive. So then the next part of things is comfort. And again, the all-road does a terrific job. Around town, so dealing with speed humps and cobblestones and railway crossings and the like, very easy, very compliant. It's a nice car to drive. On a longer tour, however, it's even more relaxing. You've got driver assistance technology, which I'll touch on in a minute because it is optional, and that's very cheeky, Audi. But in terms of just general ride comfort and ride behavior, I think the station wagon format of the all-road makes it a much better behaved car than you find from an SUV, even an Audi SUV. And for that reason, I would always pick the all-road over even a competing Q5, just because it's a little bit more, I guess, tight and enjoyable to drive. Something else we've noticed is how long it takes to wake from sleep. So that is from a start-stop at a set of traffic lights, and it's just not as willing off the mark as you'd really want it to. And it can be from that trying to be more efficient as it tends to be to drive along, where it will switch off the diesel, but it's just waking up from that sometimes is just not as urgent as you'd like. And we say it time and time again with Volkswagen Group products, so whether it's a VW or a Skoda or an Audi, that latency between asleep to save fuel and action of driving can be quite pronounced. The transmission on the move, again, is great. You've got paddle shifters here on the wheel if you need them. It's fast, it's kind of completely imperceptible to see when it changes gears. So on the go, it's great. When you're stopped and changing, so for a parallel park, again, you get that latency between drive and reverse, and the shifter itself's a little bit fiddly to use. You kind of have to dislocate your elbow in the rigs maneuver to get access to it, and it's, I don't know, it just could be a little bit better. And you find, particularly standard thing to check, a reverse parallel park up a hill, there is that rollback latency that you'll get. So do try it and take it for a test drive before you commit to a purchase. So then onto the big thing, value. Now, we touched on it earlier in the clip, and the fact that the driver assistance tech on this car, which is a $70,000 car to begin with, is optional, that's not on. Quite frankly, these days, everything like that, particularly on a premium product like an Audi, should be rolled in. But this car, with its options, you got the paint and the wheels, we've got no sunroof, we've got no kicker on the boot, we've got no heated seats, and this is a $75,000 car. And that's a bit too much. And I think that is really where we find the weak point of the all-road, is you're getting a really nice car, it's a lovely car to drive, it's a very well-made car, but it just doesn't stack up in the value stakes against other Volkswagen Group products. And you know, I would be very, very hard pressed to tell you to not buy this car and go and look at a Volkswagen Passat All-Track, because it's basically the same. Sure, you don't get the niceties of the Audi badge, and you do sort of step down a little bit in terms of materials, but it's a very, very nice car, and it's a much better value proposition. Now, in terms of technology and, I guess, luxury appointments in this car, there are some really, really nice touches. The light-up cup holders, I love that. You've got interior mood lighting on the rear doors to make it easy to see where your switches are and where the handles are. Really, really handy, especially for having kids in the back. The touchscreen up here, again, the Audi system is quite advanced. The Google Maps overlay on the navigation, it works really well when you're touring in the countryside. Perhaps it gets a little busy when you're around town, but I still like it as a feature. It does look impressive. I have to say, one of the most impressive parts of it is the Apple CarPlay full screen overlay. It takes up the whole screen. It scales appropriately. It feels rich. It looks really, really nice on there. And so from that side of things, you do get that premium feel. However, for this update of the A4, Audi have taken away the controller that you had down here, and it's basically only the touchscreen that you have as an interaction point. And so if you're driving around, it's a little bit bumpy, or you're moving around, you're sort of like, trying to figure out where to touch on the screen. And I find in order to use it, I have to hold the screen with my hand and brace myself and then just use my thumb. And it's not just me. Some of the other team around the CarAdvice Drive office have seen the same thing, and you find it's just not that easy to use versus the jog wheel or even a touchpad here on the console that was a lot easier to get while you were driving. And I think it's perhaps a step backward for Audi in terms of that rolling usability in just making this a touch screen. So it's a nice screen and it's a good menu. Could be a little bit better designed, I will say, especially when you see what Mercedes is up to. But it's the interaction points I feel probably not as good as they could have been. One of the things we haven't really liked about the allroad is the way that it tends to, I guess, scrub or push when it's on full lock. Now that is part of it being a four-wheel drive. So the all-wheel drive system, the wheels are moving at different rates as we're turning around, but it's really, really noticeable in this car. And where I am, I'm going to do a U-turn and see if you can hear it. So if we go full lock like that, can you feel and hear that, the vibration coming through? Sometimes it's worse than others, but it's very, very noticeable, particularly when you're turning tightly. And in a shopping centre or a car park environment, you hear it all the time. It's not degrading the way that you drive the car, and it certainly is not putting you in any harm's way, but it's just, I don't know, it's just something that you wouldn't really expect from a car at this level. But fundamentally, and I know we made a bit of fun of the all-road and all-weather bit at the start of the clip, the all-road really is a great all-rounder. I will say it's a cool car. Like, it looks cool, it's a cool family car, it's a cool dad car if you're a cool dad like me. Like, it's a good, solid all-rounder in so many ways. It ticks the boxes as a practical, luxurious, and really effortless tourer. They just need to fix that value proposition. Well, we'll sum this up nice and quickly before the next lot of rain comes through. The Audi A4 Allroad is a great all-rounder. It's really well built, it's lovely to drive, and that diesel engine gives plenty of punch. Where the car really does fall down though is in the value proposition. The fact that you can get something else from the Volkswagen Audi group that is the same size and does the same thing as the Allroad for much less with more equipment is probably the smarter decision, and it's the one that we would likely take. But if you've got a different opinion or would simply like to know more, hit us up in the comments below. Always hit subscribe to stay up to date with all of our latest videos, and hit the bell icon as well, just to make sure you receive a notification every time a new video is published. If you would like to read up more about the Audi A4 Allroad and what it's been like as a long-termer for us, then you can read the review in detail over at Drive.com.au.